So I am the proud father of 3 little girls, which means I watch a lot more kids' movies than you would ever think, right? And one of my favorites is The Lion King, okay? And in The Lion King, there's this amazing song because Simba meets 2 guys named Timon and Pumbaa, right? And they sing this song, and you're gonna have to help me because I am horrible at singing, okay? So here's how it goes, okay? Hakuna Matata, what a wonderful phrase. Hakuna Matata, it ain't no passing craze. It means no for the rest of your... Yeah, there's some other 80s, 90s kids in here. Good job, right? Hakuna Matata, it means no worries. And I think part of the reason we remember that, other than it being like the greatest song, right, is that it strikes such a chord with us because we do worry. No worries? Like that would be incredible if we could actually have no worries. No worries? That's so hard. And that's why the song is so good because, well, we live in a pandemic of worry. We would love to be free from worry, but we live in this pandemic of worry. A 2020 study by the Gallup poll found that 59% of American adults struggle with worry every single day. A study by the American Psychiatric Association found that 77% of adults report feeling physical symptoms from their stress and their worry in everyday life. And get this one blew my mind. Americans are 5 times more likely to struggle with anxiety than the global average. We are not Hakuna Matata-ing very well, right? We live in this pandemic of worry, and we desperately need a shift in our souls of how we deal with worry. All of us worry sometimes, right? Some of us worry all the time. But Jesus is going to command us to worry none of the time. He actually does this in the very first verse in our passage, verse 22. Then Jesus said to his disciples, this is Luke 12, verse 22, then Jesus said to his disciples, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life. Do not worry. Now the Greek word is paramenao, for worry. It's really cool. It's a combination of 2 words, the word divided and the word mind. Divided mind, that's the word worry. Which isn't that a good picture of what we feel like when we're worried? I feel like we have a divided mind, right? Have you been there? You're physically somewhere, but you're worried, and so you're somewhere else. You're divided, right? You have a divided mind, and that's what being worried is. And Jesus commands us, don't have a divided mind. Do not be worried, which that is a wild command. It's a wild command. It might be the one we break most often, right? Do not worry. So how do we do this? How does Jesus help us solve our worry problem? Well, as we track through this passage, we're going to see that Jesus talks about 5 truths when it comes to worry. And he's going to pair them with 5 shifts that you can make in your life to help rid yourself of these worries that we get so caught up in, that we are so caught up in, that our society right now is absolutely full of. 5 ways we can get some more Hakuna Matata in our lives, right? 5 of these unbelievable truths about worry. The first one comes in verse 22. Then Jesus said to his disciples, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear, for life is more than food and the body more than clothes. Now, in first century Israel, their worry about food and clothes was not the same as our worry about food and clothes today. When we worry about food, it's like, where am I going to put this 7-pound bag of Kirkland signature, peanut butter pretzel nuggets in my pantry? And when we worry about clothes, we're like, oh man, I got 43 shirts. I just bought 7 on Amazon. I got to find which 6 I have to give away to Goodwill, right? But their worry, they didn't know where their next meal was coming from a lot of times. And usually people in the first century in Israel, they had 1 or 2 sets of clothes that they just repaired over and over again. So for them, this was a very real worldly worry. This is, if just worldly stuff, it was easy for their minds to get preoccupied. If you don't know where your next meal is coming from, if you don't have 1 set of clothes that has a hole in it, this is what you're going to worry about, this worldly, tangible things. And it's easy to become preoccupied with it. And that's the Jesus is making, is that worry is the side effect of worldly preoccupation. And Jesus wants them to get their attention, and he wants to shift their attention away from the worldly into the eternal. There's a similar point in verse 24. He said, consider the ravens. They do not sow or reap. They have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. And how much more valuable you are than the birds. So you don't see ravens out in the field on a John Deere, right, harvesting. You don't see them going to Ace Hardware and filling up the barn with bird seed. But they're not worried. They're not worried about how they're going to eat. And if you're more important than them, then God is going to take care of you too. That's the idea. You've never seen a bird up in a tree pacing back and forth, being like, my 401k took a hit. My 401k took a hit. Like they're not worried about this stuff. A raven does not allow the things of this world, even food, to preoccupy them. And the point is that worry is the side effect of worldly preoccupation. So I wonder what worldly things you're preoccupied with. We have to take care of all sorts of stuff in life. We have to work at that. The point is not to stop working on these things. The point is preoccupation. Because what you are preoccupied with, what your mind is engrossed with, is what you're going to be so worried about. These are the things that we worry about, right? It's the stuff that just kind of rolls through our mind and we get preoccupied. What have been some of those things lately for you? What are some of those things that they just keep coming up year after year in your mind that you're preoccupied with, that you're worried about? One of the silly ones for me in the last few weeks was the last time it snowed, I found out that my tires were bald on my truck, which is not good. So I bought a set of tires from a store. I don't want to say it out loud in public, so it rhymes with Zolmart, okay? So I buy this set of tires online. They lose them. Buy a second set of tires. They accidentally cancel. So the third set of tires, I order them, and now every day I'm all worried, are they going to actually ever get here before the next time it snows? And I'm checking online. Like, I don't have OCD, but it grazed me. I get a little obsessed about stuff at times, you know? It grazed me. And so I'm like, every day I'm on their website 3-4 times. Okay, are my tires still coming? Are they going to get here? Because I drive the kids to school. Is it going to snow? And you get worried. Why? Because you're preoccupied. It's the stuff your mind just constantly is rolling through. And this is what happens to us, whether it's job, health, money, tires, whatever it is. We get preoccupied with just regular worldly stuff, with worldly cares. And the side effect of that is worry. And so Jesus wants us to shift that preoccupation from being preoccupied with just the tangible worldly things to something more. That's the word that comes up both in verse 23 and 24, more. Focus on more important things. Faith, family, Christ, worship, prayer, scripture. If you focus on the more, you won't be as preoccupied and worried about these worldly things. Occupy your mind with more. So here's the first shift that will ward off worry. Worry is the side effect of worldly preoccupation. So shift your focus to more. Verse 25. Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? It's funny that it took scientists like 2,000 years to figure out that Jesus was correct here. A recent study out of Finland found that if you live a life where you're worried and you're stressed, that it subtracts about 2.8 years off your lifespan. Or if you live a life that is particularly positive and you're not worried, you're not stressed out all the time, it'll actually add 10 years to your life. So turns out Jesus was right. What a shock, right? What a shock. But worry produces less than nothing. That's his point. Jesus is like, okay, imagine that you just sat around for an hour and you worried a lot about your life. I'm very worried about my death. I'm worried about my life. You worried about like the big things in life, okay? At the end of that 1 hour, did you add time to your lifespan? Like, did you add a few years that you're going to spend in the retirement home? No. In fact, all you did was you subtracted the 1 hour that you already did have. So worry doesn't just do nothing. Worry actually does worse than nothing because it steals the time you do have. Think about the time you don't. So why worry? And Jesus' point is like, hey, if you don't have to worry about those big things like your death, like life, like your lifespan, then why worry about the little things? Why sweat the little things? Why? Why sweat the rest? Worry produces less than nothing, so shift away from sweating the rest. Shift away from sweating the rest. I'm sweating those small things. At the gym, I've been using the stair climber. Have you seen this thing? And the reason I'm doing it is because I was like, what's the most miserable thing you can do? That's probably the best thing, right? And so it's like, yeah, it's the stair climber, right? Cardio and I do not get along. This is becoming a... But cardio and I do not get along, right? But here's the thing. So I'm on the stair climber, and I'm thinking about this passage, and I'm listening to it over and over again. And I'm like, ooh, worry is like the stair climber. Because you get on the stair climber, and it's a lot of effort, and you're kind of miserable. And you're really, when you get done, it takes all the strength out of you. It wears you out. You got nothing left. But when you get off, you're in the same place that you started. Same thing with worry. Man, doesn't worry convince you you're doing a lot of work? Like, doesn't it convince you, oh man, I'm getting, all my thoughts are running through my head. I've got my heart racing. I've got all this stuff going. My mind is moving. But then when you step off the stair climber of work, you're exactly where you were at the beginning, except you're more exhausted, more worn out, more stressed out than you began. It's the same thing. So the second mindset shift that'll ward off worry is this. Worry produces less than nothing. So shift away from sweating the rest. Verse 27, consider how the wildflowers grow. They do not labor or spin, yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, how much more will he clothe you, you of little faith? Flowers. There's this trail, my very favorite mountain biking trail in the whole world, is right above Crested Butte. I go to it each year. I wake up really early. So I'm coming down the very top of the trail, up above the tree line, right as the sun is coming up, and the sun hits the side of the mountains, and you can see this whole mountainside is full of the most beautiful yellow and purple and blue flowers. It's absolutely beautiful. Have you seen this in the mountains, right? Those, just like when you see the whole mountainside, and it's just covered, it's blanketed in these flowers. You're like, oh, that's gorgeous. But there's this funny contrast between how magnificent that mountainside of flowers is and how insignificant any one flower is. Like you could go pick it and no one's like, you picked the flower, it's dead, right? Like it's insignificant. And yet God takes care of it. God takes care of it. And so if that flower that's so insignificant can trust God to take care of it, how much more can we trust God to take care of us? We're so much more significant than one little flower that can be plucked. So why do we not trust God? You see, worry feeds off our lack of trust in God. That's its food. That's what it lives off. Worry feeds off of our lack of trust in God. So this week, one night, my 7-year-old daughter, before bedtime, she got up out of bed. She was really worried. She came to the family room. She sat down and said, Dad, I'm worried about the heating bill. I said, what are you talking about? She said, oh, Dad, with rising energy costs, inflation, and supply chain issues, can we pay the heating bill this month? I'm worried, Dad. No, that didn't happen, right? Like even, that I made that, that, I don't even think she knows that we have a heating bill, right? Like, she's not worried about that because she's 7. And she trusts her parents. She trusts her father to take care of her. Now, if you met a 7-year-old, 7-year-olds are like this, right? If you met a 7-year-old and they were worried about the heat in their home, you would know that they don't trust their parents to provide. And that's Jesus' point. Worry is a diagnostic tool that reveals our lack of trust in the Lord. Worry feeds off our lack of trust. So what we need to do is shift our control. Shift our control. Because if you believe you are in control of your life and you're white-knuckling in and it's up to you to provide and it's all up to you, guess what? You should be so worried because you're not that awesome. And because there's a lot of stuff that's outside of our control, isn't there? And so if it's up to you, if you think you're in control, you should be very worried, and you will be. But if you can put the control of your life over into the lane of God, well, you can keep working, but without the worry. because you know he's in control. So worry feeds off our lack of trust. So shift your control. Shift your mindset of who's in control of your life. I'm not in control. I don't need to worry. God's got to take care of this. I'll keep working, but I don't need to worry because God's in control. Verse 29. And do not set your heart on what you will eat or drink. Do not worry about it. For the pagan world runs after all such things, and your Father knows that you need them. Now, the word set, as in set your heart on, in these verses, set your heart on, is the word zeteo, and it means desire or to want, to have a longing for. And the idea is like, what should you not have a longing for? What should you not desire as the thing in your life? What should you not set your heart on? And Jesus says in verse 30, things. Things. Do not allow your heart to desire possession stuff and things above anything else. It wears your heart out for your heart to be set on things because there's never enough things. If you want to prove this, go meet a very rich person. There's never enough. They want more things, right? There's never enough things. So you get worn out. You get worried. Verse 31, but seek his kingdom and these things will be given to you as well. Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. Do you see the shift here that Jesus is proposing? Verses 29 and 30, Jesus is saying, hey, if your heart is set on things, you're going to be worried because there'll never be enough. You'll always want more things. You're going to be worried. But you can shift your heart. You can shift what your heart is set on. You can shift what you desire. And if you shift what your heart really desires to God's kingdom, well, you're not going to be as worried. You're not going to be as worried. Worry weighs on a heart set on things. So shift your heart's desire. Because if you shift your heart from, look, in the grand scheme of things, things aren't that big, right? Things aren't that, you can't take them with you. So they're actually quite small. And so if you can shift your heart from really desiring these little things to desiring, as Jesus is saying, the kingdom that is so much greater. If your desire is up here, well, you can barely even see your worry for the little things in life. It's like when I was a kid, there was this house that caught fire a couple streets over. And so, of course, the whole neighborhood had to go see, right? So we're all around this house, and luckily it was mostly just the chimney that had caught fire, and these flames are coming out, and we're like, whoa! And there's all, the whole neighborhood is lined up, and the fire trucks are coming in. And I overhear two of the parents talking about, this is going to be very expensive to fix. They're talking about the cost of the fix until someone yelled out that one of the kids was missing from the house. And so suddenly, attention shifts, right? Something bigger's in play. And so everyone kind of starts running around, yelling to the firemen about this kid. And now everyone was fine. No problem at all. They got it put out. It wasn't a big deal. But what was interesting was the shift. That when your attention is drawn to something greater, like someone's life, suddenly your smaller worries, like, it's going to cost a lot of money to fix, you totally forget them. You totally forget them. And that's Jesus' point. Shift your heart's desire. Shift your focus. If you can shift it to God's kingdom is so much greater. There's so much more at stake that if your life's about that, by comparison, those little things we worry about in this world, they're going to be too small to notice. Just like a life is so much more important than how many dollars of chimney is going to cost to fix. God's kingdom is so much more important by comparison to our little worries of the world. So I would challenge you. I wonder what it would look like if you got really focused, if you shifted your heart's desire, like, you know what I want in life? I want to help share faith and see people's eternities changed. That's a big thing, right? Is there anything more at stake than the eternal souls of other people? I want to introduce people to Jesus. That's my heart's desire. I want to raise my family to create generations of faith. Man, there's a lot at stake there, isn't it? That's my heart's desire. I want to get involved in church and serve to see God's kingdom expanded right here in Lakewood, Colorado. There's a lot at stake, right? That's my heart's desire. I want to worship, and I want to pray, and I want to read scripture, and I want to grow closer to the Lord. You see, if you put your heart's desire in these big things, and you get wrapped up in them, and you get engrossed in them, well then, By comparison, all the smaller worries that you did have, about those bills, about the school, about the homework, about the job, they look so much smaller because they are. And so you've shifted your perspective. You've shifted your heart's desire. So here's the fourth mindset shift that will ward off worry. Worry weighs on a heart set on things. So shift your heart's desire. Shift your heart's desire. Verse 33. Sell your possessions. Give it to the poor. Provide purses for yourselves that will not wear out, a treasure in heaven that will never fail, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. 85% of American adults, 85% say they are worried about money. 80% say they experience financial anxiety. We worry over money. Half of American adults say they lose sleep over their worries with money. We have a lot of worry around money, don't we? We just do. And this is what Jesus is getting at. The treasures we own us, and it creates worry. And what does he say is the solution to your worry about money? Money might be the most universal worry that we all have. So what does Jesus say is the solution? He says, give it away. You're like, my accountant would disagree, right? You're like, wait, what? But if you think about it, it actually makes perfect sense. Because if you're worried about money, you're worried about having enough, you're worried about saving, you're worried about it being stolen, you're worried about it disappearing. If you're worried about money and you choose to give sacrificially to God, here's the beautiful thing that happens. You wake up a month later and there's still food on your table, God is still good, you can still trust him, and you're like, oh, my worries about money were completely unfounded. Not only did I not have to worry about money, I even have less. I gave it away and I'm still fine. God is still taking care of me. I can still trust the Lord. And that is a weight off your back. The way to store up wealth in heaven is to give it away on earth. As Jesus says in verse 33, that will never fail. It cannot be stolen from you. It cannot be taken from you. It cannot wear out like riches on earth. Because you see in verse 34, he says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Your heart follows your money. We often think it's the other way around. No, your heart follows where you put your money. If you hoard your money, you are going to be really, really worried about protecting it because your heart's going to follow it, right? So if you're like, I'm going to hoard it for myself, your heart is going to do this. It's going to be worried about protecting it, worried about storing it, worried about growing it. It's going to be consuming of your thoughts. But if you give your money away to God and his kingdom, you're released from that worry. Worry weighs as you hoard wealth. So shift to giving it away. Worry weighs down on your heart as you hoard wealth. So you got to shift. We've got to shift to giving it away to the Lord. Once I spent a week in Iceland backpacking. And so we're on this backpacking trip, and this bus drops tons of us off at one time. And we're going to be, we're not together, but we're going through. And there's this guy from Europe, forget what country, and he had the biggest backpack I've ever seen. Like, it was huge, and we were going to be there a week, so it was like, okay, I get it. He had all sorts of extra clothes. He had this big tent. He had all these all the extra food. I think he could have fit in. He had power tools. He probably didn't have power tools. I don't know what he had in this thing, but it was enormous. And so he starts down the trail, and he's really struggling, like, right off the bat. The thing is so heavy. And day 2, you have to cross this river. And he didn't cross the river. The pack was too big, right? It just weighed him down. He couldn't keep going. It was just heavy. It weighed on him. Now, I had been having all these problems with my knees because that's what happens when you treat your body poorly in your 20s, if you're still in your 20s. So I had all these problems with my knees. And so I was like, oh, man, how am I going to do this? So I bought this ultralight backpack, and I took one extra set of clothes. It's not that gross, don't worry. And I took the exact amount of food I needed. I didn't even take a toothbrush because that's like 3 ounces of extra weight, right? So I got rid of everything I didn't need, and I had never hiked like this before, so I was kind of worried about it. But the cool thing is, by the end, I was like, oh, I didn't need all that extra stuff. I've been carrying out on all these other backpack trips for years and years and years. I didn't need any of it. I didn't need that stuff. And what you realize is that the weight isn't the trail. The weight is all the extra stuff you carry along the way out of fear. Did you hear that? Because it's the same in life. The weight of life isn't the weight of the trail. A lot of it that we feel on our hearts is the weight of all the extra stuff we're carrying out of fear. And one of these things is money. We hoard money out of fear. We hoard money out of fear of the future, out of fear of it being lost, stolen, out of fear of running out of money. And all of that fear ends in worry. And that fear sits on our chest. It sits on our hearts like a weighted backpack. Just this huge weight that's weighing down our lives. But what we need to do, what Jesus proposes is, if you want to get rid of that worry, if you want to get rid of that weight, if you want to get rid of that backpack of financial anxiety, you got to start giving your money away. Because you'll realize you didn't need all of it anyway. And you'll realize the weight was all the extra you were carrying out of fear. So fifth mindset shift that'll ward off worry. Worry weighs as you hoard wealth. So shift to giving it away. Shift to giving it away. I love this passage because it's so applicable to us. Like, we really do struggle with fear. We struggle with worry so badly. Particularly, isn't that wild? We are 5 times more likely to struggle with worry, anxiety than global average. Like, we really struggle with this. We struggle to Hakuna Matata. We just do. We want no worries, but it's a struggle. So here's the big thing I learned in this passage. For worry not to wear me out, I need to shift. For worry not to wear me out, I need to shift my mindset to my Messiah. That's what I need to do. I need to make the shift in my heart. I need to make a shift in my mindset. I need to make a shift in how I think. Now, it's very interesting. Jesus, in verse 33, he says, when you give your money away, it's like you're storing up treasures in heaven. And he says, that purse will never wear out. Which I love that image. Can you get that image in your mind? Like, think of a fabric purse that's been used for years and years and years. And it's like frayed on the edges, and it's got holes in the middle. And that's such a good image that you can have in your mind of what happens when we worry. Because when you worry day in, day out, month in, month out, year in, year out, when you're consumed by worry, don't you feel worn out? Don't you feel frayed at the edges? This just real picture. But we can have that purse that never frays. For worry not to wear me out, I need to shift my mindset to my Messiah. Corrie ten Boom once said this: worry does not empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It empties today of its strength. Worry does not empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It empties today of its strength. And I don't know about you, but isn't that how we feel when we get worried? We're emptied. It feels like you're being emptied. It feels like you're being worn out. For worry not to wear me out, I need to shift my mindset to my Messiah. There's 5 times in this passage that Jesus gives these shifts, where he gives a truth about worry, and then he shows you how to shift and get rid of that worry. But the thing is, they're all the same shift. All five are shifts away from yourself to Jesus. They're the same shift. It's all about shifting from yourself to Jesus. For worry to not wear me out, I need to shift my mindset to my Messiah. It's like late November, we took our girls up to the mountains to cut a Christmas tree down. And we're going up to Winter Park and up that Earthen Pass. And it's really steep and it's really windy. And, I had my truck in the gears. And at one point, my truck starts revving really, really high. And it sounds like it's grinding it out and putting all this effort and it's getting loud. I'm like, what in the world's going on? And I had it in the wrong gear, right? It's like, oh, and I just shifted and it was immediate. Once I shifted, well, then the truck was quiet, right? And it was easy. It was like, oh, this is the right gear. We need to shift into the right gear. If you find yourself consumed by worry, maybe you're in the wrong gear. And that's what it feels like when you're in the wrong gear in life. That's what it feels like when you're worried. It feels like you're just revved up all the time. It feels like you're just grinding it out in life, like you're having to put extra effort in all the time. It feels like that. You're in the wrong gear. We need to shift into the right gear and give the Lord control. Because life only works in the right gear. And once you shift from yourself to Christ, things get a whole lot easier. For worry to not wear me out, I need to shift my mindset to my